All right, we will now begin the special called meeting of the Public Safety Committee and the Health, Hospitals, and Social Services Committee for August 5th, 2020. And as we get started, I appreciate everyone joining us here today. And let me tell you what the agenda is. It's a very simple agenda. We're going to discuss two things. I will run the first portion of the meeting, and the first portion of the meeting deals with mask enforcement and some of the concerns that we've heard about that. So what we wanted to do is give the mayor's office an opportunity to give a brief description of what's been going on with respect to mask enforcement and what we expect moving forward, and then take questions from council members about their concerns. We also have the police department represented here today, so any questions directed toward the mayor's office or the police department will be able to be answered by council members. So the second portion of the meeting, which will be run by Council Member Hurt from the Health, Hospitals, and Social Services Committee, deals with some of the concerns that people may have. We've heard from council members who've expressed concerns from their constituents about certain businesses that were shut out of phase 2, and questions about why they were shut out and other businesses allowed to be a part of phase 2. So we also have the mayor's office, and we have the health department represented here today as well. Mr. Sharp, as y'all can see, is on the call. So without further ado, we will begin the meeting, and we'll start this with Mr. Jameson from the mayor's office giving us a brief update on mask enforcement and what's going on in that arena. So, Mr. Jameson, I'll turn it over to you for that.
Thank you, Chair Pulley. Can you hear me?
I can.
Very good. Well, thank you for this opportunity. I won't belabor a summary of the problems that the council members have reported over the past couple of weeks. Suffice it to say that we were looking at clearly a learning curve. The police department rightfully focused on educational outreach. That is a very typical approach, particularly if you have new criminal law enforcement procedures from the state. They do try to focus on first educating the populace before the citations are issued. It appeared, at least anecdotally, that they were reporting a near 100% compliance rate as they approached individuals who were unmasked, who either pulled out a mask there and then or left to get one ostensibly. Police department also reported a significant number of tourists in the hotspots that have erupted in the last couple of weeks, a heavy out-of-town concentration, allegations that the out-of-town individuals were unfamiliar with local ordinances. I understand there's some suspicion as to whether or not that is realistic, but that is what the police were observing. Other problems range from General Sessions Court being closed, where Class C misdemeanors could be prosecuted, and the wisdom of essentially citing individuals into a closed interior courthouse space was adding to some of the problems in the officers' minds. And last but not least, this still appears to be a somewhat confrontational issue in some instances with those who assert everything from constitutional rights to larger conspiracy theories. Nevertheless, notwithstanding multiple concerns, I don't know if everyone saw the mayor's comments to the press on Tuesday morning, but he made clear that this is our highest calling right now, and that at the end of this process, we're in fact saving lives. And so more towards a zero tolerance approach was going to be pursued. This week, on 2 to 3 occasions, our Chief Operations Officer, Kristen Wilson, has convened a large meeting of all enforcement agencies, the police, Metro Legal, health, codes, the EOC, even the Transportation Licensing Commission, went through a fairly effective summary of all pending and outstanding health orders, along with specific identification on who's on task to enforce them, and also further coordinating the 24/7 contacts between departments, particularly off hours when these problems during nights and weekends can erupt. She covered what you might call the specialty issues during this pandemic, the construction site issues, the transportation or transportainment issues. So in the last few days, the trends have been becoming more favorable. 3 days ago, we were at 195 cases. Yesterday, we were down to 109, and today, I think we're coming in close to that as well. Last two things I would want to say is that throughout these discussions that I've been fortunate enough to observe, in terms of what council members, what reporting mechanisms they should rely on and what reporting mechanisms they should encourage their constituents to rely on, this may just be me, but I sometimes get the impression from council members that when we refer members to the hub, they view that almost dismissively. And I know it may feel like a more warm, fuzzy feeling if you're given a department head's cell number for a late night call. But the second term council members know that the hub is the one area in which we have truly focused our response resources and coordinated this with electronic communications between the responsive and enforcing agencies. It is 24/7, and it maintains data and guarantees a response and follow-up with record keeping. It is the number one resource. I use it. I don't phone in day-to-day complaints. It is the most effective and most efficient, and it is not at all intended to be a slight or dismissive to anyone you refer them to. With that, Chairman Pulley, we have with us representatives from Health, as you recognize, the Police Department, the Codes Department, Metro Legal, the EOC, and the TLC with us here to answer questions. And thank you for this opportunity.
Thank you, Mr. Jameson. Appreciate that summary. Looks like Ben McDonough's here also from the Beer Board, so appreciate you joining us as well. With that, council members, I'm going to turn it over to you for questions regarding the mask enforcement. So if you should have any questions of any of the people who are here represented, please just raise your hand and I will acknowledge you. So don't see any hand. Okay. Councilmember Johnston, you are recognized.
So this question would be for any representative of the police department. So now that Mayor Cooper has issued that we shall enforce this, that language specifically, what is the understanding of the officers of what their duty is when they come across someone that is not wearing a mask? Do they like what's this procedure so that everyone's on the same page? Do you immediately get a citation? Do you get a warning first? Do you what's the process?
This is Deputy Chief Damian Huggins. Thank you for your question and thank you for having us here. Well, the enforcement actually has been ongoing. It's started before, but our flyers on the outset of this had the addresses and locations that you could go to buy masks on them. So the big push early on was certainly to provide the information to the public. Even if they didn't see the signs, which seem to be pretty obvious, it's amazing what people don't see that may be out there, and we don't make a presumption. So all of our flyers have the information. In fact, we did some things to provide timelines for people to get access to masks and to get those things in place and to work with businesses to make sure they had access to masks. So then we did this. Also coordinated with the Homelessness Commission to try and get masks downtown, the people that may be most vulnerable, because they're going to be downtown as well. And so while we're doing this enforcement is educating, it's trying to get compliance. Voluntary compliant has actually been the kind of the utopia of where policing wants to be and to go, not through enforcement of incarceration, diversion, education, things like that. So we've gone that route. In speaking with the mayor's office, we've produced a roll call training that went out to all officers that said, at this time, we now will start issuing citations where it's practical and reasonable to do so. Obviously, the information that when you run into somebody that isn't from here, they go, oh, I didn't know. We're going to provide them the information to be able to try and get compliance. A citation may not be immediately issued at that point in time, but if they say, I'm not going to wear a mask, or you've watched them go past the locations where you provided the information that they could have the mask, citations will be issued. Citations have already been issued to some of the businesses where it was obvious that they should be aware or were made aware, or all of the above. But for the most part, we've been running into people that were from not in town and were very, nice with the officers and speaking and said, yep, they would comply and go buy one at the first store and come to. So, but they are seeing sometimes later in the night, some of the people that are just going to walk on by and not make face contact, and up to this point, they've chosen not to have a confrontation with those individuals when there was the opportunity to not have the confrontation, and it was at very small numbers. It's to this point, most of the people have been extremely nice with the police down there and working toward it. You can watch the videos from downtown, not the ones you see on TV, but I'll periodically watch them throughout the day. And you see a lot of the people and tourists that are carrying on are wearing masks. Some may have them down late in the evening. It is also a little bit more difficult because they serve drinks now outside and people are walking around drinking. And that kind of complicates the discussion with people about when you're supposed to wear it, not supposed to wear it. When in restaurants, you don't when you're drinking and eating, but outside we're expecting you to. So it's a complicated messaging, but I think that the officers have been doing a good job in getting that message out. And now it's time to take it to another level with more enforcement through citations if we're not getting compliance. And there's more officers being assigned in different aspects and agencies being considered in how we utilize those downtown going forward.
Great. Thank you.
Thank you.
Vice Chair Johnson, is that all your questions?
Right now, yes.
Okay, I'm sure you'll have more before it's all over. Councilmember Rosenberg, I saw your hand up. You're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So I'm sorry, I might have been having some audio problems, so if I missed something. But I appreciate the fact that you're going to be doing a little bit more enforcement downtown. I know so much of people's behavior is driven by their perception of what's happening. And I have a lot of constituents or hear of people in the community who look at people wandering around downtown without masks and figure, it's a joke, it's not a real thing. Or they hear that people are just going to be asked to put on a mask, and it's, it's a penalty for driving 100 miles an hour. It's just that you're going to be asked to drive slower. We're going to have a lot more speeders. So I'm glad that there might be some real enforcement on the way. I just wanted to check and make sure that y'all are aware. I know on social media there's been stuff floating around about another big club opening this weekend where they're inviting. It sounds like it's going to be the East Nashville thing over again. Has that hit folks' sheet for what's coming up this weekend?
I'm not sure I heard everything. You were saying something about a club, something on social media about a club. I heard the early part. Is it something that I can't see it anymore?
He said on social media it's floating around that there's going to be another big party and club opening similar to the one that happened in East Nashville. Are you guys aware of it? Are we doing anything to prohibit it?
If we can get that information sent to me or to any of the precinct commanders, make sure that we're talking about the same party, but each of the commanders, and especially the downtown precinct and other precincts that are aware of and doing usually go make contact with the commanders of the businesses when they hear any information about parties, especially in the current environment.
Great. Thank you. And thank you, Councilmember Porterfield, for filling in while I try to get my audio. The place is called Vibes, and it's on Demondron Street and they're advertising it all over that they can. I'll send that along. Thank you. And
Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Rosenberg. Councilmember Parker, you are recognized.
Thank you, Chair. So I had a question kind of along similar lines. Considered.
Councilmember Parker,
so
could you start over? We missed a good bit of what you were saying there.
Oh, sorry. So the 25-person gathering limit, specifically. So I did notify my precinct about that party about 30 hours ahead of time. And it's my understanding there was a police response to it. I haven't had any further communication with leadership in my precinct since then. So I've only heard the statements from the news media and whatnot. It's my understanding that it was determined that, this gathering limit is not enforceable on private property. Is that Metro Police's interpretation?
I believe it may not be enforceable on private property.
Okay. Is there anything
that whole incident is still currently under investigation for how we can address it for various reported incidents that occurred.
Okay, well, thank you. Is there anything that we could change as far as how the order is written or at the council level with ordinance that would, this was advertised as a public event. This was they were inviting the public into this space. So where does that line of if it is a bar or a restaurant is private property, right? But if you're inviting the public in there, then you're subject to these orders. Is that not reasonable?
Somewhat. With a business, you're permitted to be open to the public, and private residences doesn't have the same permitting and expectation of public entry and inspection. So there's a bunch of the legal minds. I know there was about 6 lawyers on one email that I looked at last. It's still kind of in consultation on this, but I promise you we're looking at all the different angles to be able to address it so that we don't have reoccurrences.
All right. Well, I appreciate that. Thank you.
You're welcome.
For clarification, Chief Huggins, with respect to the issue Councilmember Parker brought up about being on private property, is what you're saying that we're still talking to the lawyers about clarification on whether you can or cannot enforce this on private property? Is that what you said?
That's my understanding and how we would go about doing that.
Well,
oftentimes you have to have entry, you have to have knowledge, you have to have probable cause to enter private property. If it's obvious and on the outside, does it just get you to the curtilage or does it get you to the inside? And there's different levels of privacy and expectations of privacy from the public space. So that's all being considered, whether or not we have the right in the private space of private residents to enforce this regulation.
Okay. Is there any way we can be informed once a decision is made and clarification does come to whoever so that we have a clear understanding of what we can expect moving forward?
I'm sure that the police department will get with Mr. Jameson and get the information over after dealing with Metro Legal and the health department.
Okay. Councilmember Parker, do you have any follow-up to that?
Yes, I guess that I would just like to say, that although this is a private residence, in that, does it change anything that in that capacity that night it was basically operating as an illegal business as codes determined, or would is the thing here that we're going to need to have codes inspectors out at night in order to make that determination, or fire marshal out to be able to say, hey, there's a capacity issue here? I just, a Saturday at 8:00 p.m., y'all are the only ones out there, We don't have fire. We don't have codes that can go out.
No, that's a very good insight. And actually, years ago, we had an environmental task force. Commander Nash knows about that. He utilized those task forces where it was all of the different agencies within Metro government that would go around and address either complaints from the different areas from council people or from the police department or citizens. So it does make it a little bit hard for the police to have all of the information about every, is there a codes violation about how many you can have inside a residence, or a fire code where we can have some type of an interaction there that's legal. So those are also things being considered going forward on how we best move the needle, so to speak, on being able to address these things in a more swift manner.
All right. Well, thank you, sir. That's it for me. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Parker. Councilmember Nash, you are recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I guess this question would be for Mike Jamison. I know last night we spent time determining whether or not we could enforce the mayor's order in regard to curfew. Are we okay to, is this a misdemeanor that we can enforce with citations and the like if we're violating the health order?
Yes, Councilman Nash, this is one of the rare instances where, fortunately, state law intervenes and makes clear that in counties, any health board order, including the directives of its director, and which in this case were issued by mandate of the board, that constitute Class C misdemeanors. And the slightly related issue last night was that a similar state statute provides that counties can make their curfews and executive orders Class Cs if they passed separate ordinances, which until last night we had not done.
That's all I had. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Councilmember Nash. Vice Chair Johnson, you have another question?
No, I'm just unable to. Sorry, I'm
unable to lower your hand. Okay, Councilmember Benedict, you're recognized.
Thank you, Chair. So I've got, as someone who's been very vocal about masking since the start of the pandemic, I'm very glad to see we are taking additional steps here to ensure that we are keeping the virus from spreading and therefore also further infections and deaths. It's critical to me that we get out in front of this. We've clearly been knocked back on our heels time and time again. So I appreciate that work. I heard it from the chief, and he's in an email, he said, please look forward to this weekend when MNPD will enter phase 2 of our enforcement process. So I haven't heard it called phase 2 until then, but I just wanted to check in, Chair, and see if there's any additional information, or if this, what was just described to us, is phase 2. Are there other pieces of phase 2 that haven't yet been shared with us?
I will refer that question to Deputy Chief Huggins. Do you have any comments on that, Chief Huggins?
I think that was just the wording chosen to go from where we are going to trying to be very informative and very educational to applying the other enforcement areas within our jurisdiction, which means the citation and arrest when necessary.
So to clarify, I'm hearing phase 2 would be the actual phase where you enter into issuing the citations?
I think that's just a way of kind of summarizing that, hey, we've been in an educational role, and that, yes, we're beyond just educational role and going into the citation and arrest phase. It wasn't off the table in the very first initial rollout of the enforcement efforts, but it was certainly the discretion of the officers at that time to the preferred response, I would assume, by officers in all of our actions is non-arrest. This was just specific language by the chief that now is the time to start applying the other enforcement efforts as well.
Thank you. Councilmember Benedict, do you have any follow-up to that?
I do. I have one other question, separate topic, if I may, Chair.
Yes, feel free.
So, yeah, so the drinking to go, as I understood it, that was when we first shut down and the governor and the mayor all said, you know, we want to help support. I think my impression was that it was to help support local businesses to continue to be able to sell while they were closed. And so you can go and you could get a draft beer, for instance, to go in a cup with a lid, but that was not designed for you to jump in your car and drink, or for you to go walk in the street and drink it as an open container. My understanding was you get that beer to go, you take it home and you drink it there. I don't know if something has gotten lost through translation or what, but I know, and as Deputy Chief Huggins mentioned a few minutes ago, one of the challenges we have with masking downtown is that people are carrying these drinks around. It's now open container downtown, so it's hard to tell them to keep their mask up because they're consuming liquid of some sort. In this particular case, an alcoholic beverage, which I don't believe is legal for somebody to have open and walking around on in our streets. I think that that's an area that if we could get some clarification on, and if it was actually not supposed to be legal, then we can do better in forcing people to wear their mask up while they're outside walking around. So 2 questions there, and maybe one is for the administration and maybe one is for the Deputy Chief. I'm not sure. Thank you, Chair. That's my last question.
Thank you, Councilmember. Deputy Chief, you want to try responding to that?
Yeah, I'll give it a shot. It all is complicated and new, and things we're having to adjust to, of course. And I'm not sure what the intent was. That's something I am sure of. But what the result is you do have people walking around with the cups drinking downtown, people selling beer from windows and outside of businesses. And the open container law, as I understand it, talks about glass bottles, cans, and I don't think it addresses in a cup. So I think it's kind of a gray area that we've, again, run into in this COVID crisis, that we've been kind of working with our citizens and our business owners and the rules that we have to make the best decisions when we can, when we're dealing with our public.
Mr. Jameson, you have any follow-up to that?
So the complication comes in the fact that we have primarily state-regulated alcoholic beverage industry. So right now, pursuant to the orders and what we can do under state law, if you have limited service restaurants, then there's no consumption of alcohol allowed on the premises at all today. But if you have a business and their primary business is food service, more than 50%, they can serve the alcohol, but only for on-premises consumption only. And in that last category, any bar that holds an on-premise beer permit but doesn't hold an ABC license, they are closed, but they can do the curbside and off-premises delivery. The only complicating factor that we have to add to that locally is that by local ordinance, we have restrictions on the type of containers in which alcohol can be served for off-premises use. No glasses, nothing essentially that could be turned into a projectile, but a red Solo cup is you're home free. That may be an ordinance that the council would like to take a look at least for a temporary basis, perhaps let it sunset if they decide it was otherwise good policy. But it is a constant terrain adjustment between state and local restrictions on alcohol.
Thank you for that. Councilmember Benedict, do you have anything further?
Thank you, Chair. I think that last point that Mr. Jameson shared is something that we have an opportunity to fix legislatively, because at this point it sounds like it may be legal to get a cup of beer in a Solo cup and put it in your car and drive around with an open container. So I think we don't want that in our vehicles, and I don't think we want that in our streets as well. So I think it's a loophole that we definitely want to try to close up. So thank you for all that information.
Thank you, Councilmember Benedict. Councilmember Stiles, you are recognized.
Thank you, Chair. My question is in regards to patrols on Broadway from Thursday to Sunday. How many officers are assigned to that area starting, from, I guess, second shift and third shift, to be able to handle people walking in the streets, to be able to say something to someone that walks by without a mask? Because certainly those were some of the posts that I saw on Facebook in dealing with masks. The belief is, it doesn't matter. No one's going to give me anything. They're just going to teach me a lesson. So how do we make it clear that we have really turned a page on that? education is not the goal here, it's compliance?
Well, the first part of it is during the week, during what we consider more of the off days, the off hours, not your later night, weekend days and hours. We have, on top of the regular patrol officers and on top of the some of the COVID patrols that are still going on, which is 6 additional officers and a sergeant, we have 8 officers and a sergeant assigned just to Broadway, 4 on each side, going back and forth from your typical entertainment areas back and forth during the weekends. And again, it's in addition to the regular patrol officers that work that area and the COVID patrol officers that are still working those assignments, which is 6 and a supervisor. Above the normal staffing is 16 officers and supervisors for each on each side of Broadway. Plans going forward will likely double that number.
Captain Levitt, I saw your hand up. Do you want to comment on any of these?
I just wanted to kind of give an overview on how this has evolved since we started, and that may answer a lot of the questions or maybe clarify some of the answers that have already been given. So when we first started with the mask mandate, of course, we were educating, we put the signboards up, put the officers out there educating the public primarily. School was out at the time, so the decision was made to have the SROs, who fall under my division, out on Broadway handling this mask enforcement issue. So we took the SROs, and in addition to the handful of them that I've got helping with meal distribution sites and COVID testing sites, we split them up into 2 shifts, 7 days a week, to patrol up and down Lower Broadway to educate folks and cite if necessary. And I want to clarify that although we haven't written many citations or any citations other than the transportation vehicles, several folks have gone to jail. They were non-compliant, and due to their level of intoxication and uncooperativeness, they bypassed the citation and went to jail. So that they were in fact addressed. It just wasn't with the citation. So as we move forward, school starts back or has started back, and I have been really advocating for the SROs, although we're doing remote learning, to be involved with the schools through Zoom, through small activities that encourage social distancing, and working creatively with Dr. Battle to get the SROs back to being involved with these kids, because we know with the distance learning especially, we're going to have kids that fall through the cracks. We're going to have kids that we need to keep an eye on and we need to be in touch with, and I want them to be able to do that. So in order to facilitate that, the SROs will continue to patrol Lower Broadway Sunday through Thursday during the peak hours, because what we found is early in the day and then after about 11 o'clock at night, when everything closes down and flushes out, we don't have a whole lot of issue or have a whole lot of going on. So from 3 to 11, 3 to midnight, Sunday through Thursday, we'll have a group of a dozen or so SROs downtown. That's enough to provide for breaks and relief because of the heat, which is coming back this weekend. And it also gives us time to rotate those SROs throughout the week back into becoming involved with their schools and with their students. On Friday and Saturday nights, the beauty of having the SROs and being the special events coordinator is I can switch between roles quickly. So I've come up with a new plan, a more comprehensive plan for Friday and Saturday night that will begin this Friday, where we will have 30 officers out there. Each division and each precinct will be involved, sending officers to be involved in the mask enforcement. We will have 3 walking teams of 8 officers each in the Lower Broadway area. And the reason I did 3 teams is we can also, if we start getting reports of issues in the Gulch, on Demonbreun Street, over in Midtown, we can move groups over into those areas too, because one of the things that's been floating around is that we're just kind of targeting the downtown area, and we've got issues in other areas that we want to start looking at too, with enforcement up to and including citations and or arrest. In addition to the 3 walking teams, I'll have 3 teams on UTVs that can go mobile. So if we had what happened the other night happen again, where the transportation vehicles just moved into another area after we cited 2 of them downtown, we'll be mobile to go and address those issues. Also, we'll be partnering with the health department again, other agencies, DCSO. So this Friday and Saturday, it will be very clear to anyone who's in the downtown area that the police are out, the police are enforcing, and as needed, as necessary, we will issue citations. And if we have people who are uncooperative or there's other situations involved, we'll make an arrest if we have to.
Thank you for that, Captain Levitt. Councilmember Stiles, you have anything further?
Yes, I do. Thank you, Chair. So please explain to me what will be the deciding factor in writing a citation. To me, this still seems unclear. You don't have a mask on, you know there's a mask mandate, here's your citation. Where's the hesitation in that being the direct action?
Well, the problem is I can't speak for every scenario that the officers are going to encounter. And there is codified in state law officer discretion. So I can't fully control how they're going to react to every situation they encounter. But I can tell you that the directive to the officers has been very clear that anyone who's not in compliance, unless they meet one of the exceptions, and we know there's a lot of exceptions, that they are to be issued a citation.
Thank you, Captain. You got anything further, Councilmember Stiles?
No, I'll just wait until Monday and see how this goes. Thank you so much.
Okay, thank you. Councilmember Welsh, you recognized?
Thank you very much, Chair. My question and concern piggybacks off of Councilmember Stiles and Captain Levitt. There have been posted on social media, on Twitter, pictures of our MNPD officers and unmasked people down on Lower Broad with open drinks that seem to be jovial. And I'm not sure that this should fall under officer discretion. It seems to me that those types of things being posted on social media show that we are not taking this seriously, that there is a level of I'm not even sure what the word is, but that people don't need to take this mask mandate seriously, and that the threat of being cited for not wearing a mask will somehow be treated with a light hand. I just wonder how the captain could respond to that, and it was very disconcerting to see, because it really shows that we are not taking this pandemic seriously and the spread of this pandemic seriously, and the threat that these large crowds on Broadway bring to the city as a whole.
Chief Captain Levitt, I'll jump on this one if you don't mind. Council Lady, I actually called each of the officers involved in the photographs into my office and addressed the issue. It is very serious. We want to represent the seriousness of the situation for everybody. You got businesses that want to open. You got a city that wants to get back in gear. You got tourists that want to come downtown. You got people that are getting ill. So regardless of what their intent was, the outcome was that it was their appearance said they weren't trying to be community police. They weren't trying to they were trying to be community police and be jovial instead of enforcing the law. Maybe that's the best way to put it. So those issues were addressed, not only with the officers involved in the photos that I received, but also with all of the details going forward. Oftentimes they're trying to make the best of a situation, trying to get people to leave at late hours and not had confrontation. But unfortunately, we can't do it in the manner that it occurred. So again, it's not often that somebody would get called to a deputy chief's office and these types of things discussed and the importance of how we move forward. But that did occur regarding this incident. So I don't expect it to happen going forward. But we do have a lot of officers and a lot of people in downtown, and they're going to try and take pictures, and we're going to try and interact with those people and be friendly and try and keep our distance at the same time.
Thank you, Chief Huggins. I did have some committee members who raised their hands, so I want to recognize them. Councilmember Vercher, you're recognized.
I just lost everybody.
Chair, I heard a lot, and I just want to say this.
I just lost the whole thing.
The conundrum that we have.
We got somebody unmuted talking. Sorry, excuse me, Councilmember Vercher. Everybody check
not a problem, Chair.
Just came back on.
The conundrum we have is that
Councilmember Welsh, can you? Thank you. Sorry about that.
Yeah. Chair, the conundrum we have is that we want police, but we don't want police. And I've stated this before, when we start interjecting certain things into officers' decision making, we end up with these scenarios. The officers, and I don't want to speak for the police department, but I will say this: as a city, everyone is taking this pandemic seriously. But what we have here in this city is we have various narratives and various movements as it relates to our police in this city. What that does, it creates I don't want to say a decision dilemma for our officers, but we're gonna have circumstances where the public is gonna feel that they should have been more aggressive in enforcing on one hand, and on the other hand, they're gonna feel like they shouldn't be enforcing and being aggressive. So I don't know what the solution is. I know as a city, the entire public safety ecosystem is out of balance. We have more police officers downtown policing masks than we do out in our neighborhoods. And that's a huge disservice to the public, not minimizing the pandemic and the importance of downtown to the economic viability of the city. But other neighborhoods deserve, and they pay taxes too, to have police presence in their respective communities, versus the city deciding to concentrate resources downtown for tourists that may comply, may not comply. We may write a citation, we may not write a citation. At the end of the day, we need to really be focused on ensuring that our communities remain safe and aren't lost. Right now is completely unbalanced, Chair, and that's my comment on it. Because I don't see, I don't see a good solution for our police officers in trying to mandate the behavior downtown. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you for your comments, Councilmember Vercher. Much appreciated. Councilmember Nash, you are recognized.
Thank you. Councilmember Vercher kind of stole some of my thunder here, but and I know the sworn officers on our team can't necessarily say this, but officers right now, in the wake of some of the crises that have happened in the last couple of months, are in that feeling, damned if you do and damned if you don't. And what kind of support am I going to get if I end up having to wrestle somebody over a mask? I don't think we've shown our officers a lot of support. We've been kind of taking a national issue and spreading it over every officer out here. So they're feeling a little tentative right now, just as Councilmember Vercher has said. So hopefully over the next few months, we can start seeing the waters calm a little bit so we can have good discussions about the role of policing and sometimes bad outcomes happen, and it isn't always the police officer's fault. And once these officers feel they're getting support again from the public, it'll be a lot easier for them to make some of these harder decisions. And then the second part is we're in the downtown district. police officers are supposed to be helpful people to our tourists and our visitors downtown and our natives that are going downtown. And a warning is always kind of the first step. And if you get somebody that's cooperative and complies, and yes, I'm sorry, I forgot, I just came out of the business, I got to put my mask on, I'm going to put it on now, should be sufficient. I don't think we have to instantly whip out the citation book and start a confrontation. Just an old cop's feeling about this.
Thank you, Councilmember Nash. Appreciate your perspective. Councilmember Rosenberg, as a member of the committee, you are recognized again. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you, Councilmember Stiles, for jogging my memory. First, I would just, in response, I understand the dilemma that Councilmember Nash is speaking of, but I think that if wouldn't be asked to go grab their pants, there would probably be some sort of action taken. And I think that we need to treat masks a lot the same. I think this is directed either the health department or the administration, but the exceptions that were mentioned earlier to the mask mandate seem to be really problematic, because just anybody can say, hey, I've got uromycetitis, so I don't have to wear a mask. I'm not aware of what conditions can keep people from wearing a mask, given all the professions that do it. But it seems to me that if you are in that dire a position with a respiratory illness running around, you probably shouldn't be out anyway without a mask. So I guess my question is, why do we have the exceptions? And isn't there a better way to address that?
It's Dr. Caldwell answer. I'd just like to.
Go ahead, Dr. Caldwell.
So much. This decision with the exceptions was done in conjunction with cooperation with Metro Legal. And I agree with you. And I did say at the mayor's press conference yesterday that if people do have a medical condition, number one, they really should not be out. Or if they are, they should be wearing a mask unless their doctor has specifically said they have a type of medical condition that prevents them from wearing a mask. I had one gentleman approach me on Saturday that said, hey, I got a medical condition. And I said, oh, I'm sorry to hear that. And he goes, yeah, just one lung. And I went, I said, you really shouldn't be out here. And I really think you should talk to your doctor about wearing a mask. So I think, at that moment when you're encountering people and trying to educate them, we don't want to have to debate whether they really have a medical condition or not. So we do know some people are just using it as an excuse. We think that is a minority of people. And then I use that as an opportunity to say what I just said, that people who have medical conditions are at higher risk of severe illness and death of the disease. And I really try to express my deep concern for their health. And that's about the best we can do without infringing on any of their rights. And I would ask any of my colleagues at Metro Legal to discuss any of the other exceptions that were noted. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Caldwell. You have anything further? Councilman Rosenberg?
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you, Dr. Caldwell, for that. So I guess, it sounds like you're kind of deferring to Metro Legal. If somebody can speak to why we have the exceptions instead of just advising that. Because really, if you're out there without a mask, I don't care what you got. You're endangering other people just as much as any other idiot in the grocery store that doesn't want to wear a mask. Why are you being allowed to run around with them? Why are you being allowed to endanger hundreds of people because you don't feel, or your doctor doesn't feel it's in your own best health to not wear a mask?
Mr. Jameson, I don't know that anybody from Metro Legal is on here. Would you like to address that, or do we have somebody from Metro Legal? Or Mr. Cooper? I think Mr. Cooper's on.
Yeah,
Go ahead, Mr. Jameson.
I think we do have Metro Legal with us. Can you hear me?
Sure, go ahead.
Yeah, I think Alex Dickerson from Metro Legal is on, at least by telephone.
Alex, could you address that?
Mr. Chair, if she's connected via telephone, I would need the area code and the first 3 digits of her phone number.
Be his, I don't know. Mr. Jameson, you want to take a stab at that?
So what I can say, I have not looked at this specifically, but what I can share is that these exceptions, if you will look at the similar ordinances across the country, they are replicated across the country. We are not unique to Nashville. I do have a vague recollection as well that the ADA Act also applies to those restrictions, enforcement restrictions. So in other words, if you're applying any sort of conduct restriction across the public sector, just as the ADA guarantees accessibility, it also guarantees that you are not to be restricted beyond what your particular health condition allows. So I have not, I want to caution that I have not spoke with Metro Legal about whether or not the ADA was part of their consideration in this instance. And I'm seeing that Alex Dickerson is trying to get on, but is unable to.
Okay. All right. Councilman Rosenberg, you have anything further?
Just a very quick comment, Mr. Chair, is that if it's not an ADA issue where our hands are tied, then no individual should be able to go out, should have the right to go endanger everybody around them, because to endanger everybody else's health because they don't feel like they can wear a mask for their own health. It's irresponsible, and it's counter to everything we're trying to do. So thank you very much. I appreciate it.
Thank you, Councilmember Rosenberg. I'm going to recognize Councilmember Hall.
Thank you, Chair. My question goes back to law enforcement and going onto or entering private property in some of these instances. One of the things that we're seeing quite a bit of is where people are not wearing masks and they're not respecting the numbers in terms of how many people are gathered, having these private parties, these events, different places. I get the presumption of privacy, but a lot of these things are publicly advertised. I mean, social media is just completely covered, saturated with events taking place every weekend, different places, and people are putting out flyers and advertising, and even now some of it more subjective, where they're taking some steps to intentionally evade, because what they'll do is they'll say, we're having this huge event and everybody's going to call at a certain time, like a flash mob kind of thing. We're going to release the location at this specific day and time, so nobody has time to mobilize, but people still have time to show up. What is our ability to get a handle on those things? Because that is the predominant thing that's happening with a lot of these parties and different types of events.
I know we addressed that earlier, but I'll let the chief speak to that one more time. Go ahead, Chief Huggins.
Again, it's very difficult, and we're trying to figure out exactly which parameters for private property. And then you got to consider, once we get the private property kind of ironed out where we feel comfortable, if it's either visible from the outside or as you receive a complaint, what our parameters are to be able to address something like that. You got to look at how we apply things through. You got to use that equity lens in all that we do. And we have other gatherings that are over 25 through marches in our streets and things of that nature that we don't apply it. So we've got to be very cautious in how we go forward. Litigation's always something we try and avoid. So we're trying to be very conscientious about how we apply the things that we may even be asked to apply, to ensure that we can do that in a manner that has equity across the board and doesn't create liability for our city.
Well, one thing I'm looking at that, and I'm considering that, for example, you wouldn't want, somebody's advertising their church service this Sunday, and they're saying, hey, come to church, and everybody comes to church, and you've got 100 people, socially distanced or not, if people aren't wearing masks, you don't want to go in a church and you don't want to start writing citations.
Correct.
We're just looking at it in terms of the event things. When people are actually utilizing venues, Airbnbs, things of that nature, even some events that are outdoor events, once they have a certain number of people, that's one component that should allow us to approach. The other being, of course, the mask mandate. So it's I think the combination of the two helps alleviate some of that gray point, and maybe legal can speak to that also. But being mindful of discretion. I know if I ride past a place, it's visible, or I'm seeing all these advertisements for an event, and there are X number of people there, far more than 25. It seems like discretion would allow you.
Councilmember Hall, we lost your audio. We don't have you. I think I got the gist of what you were asking. So, Chief, from what you said earlier, if we are aware of events like that, we're to report them to you, and we are going to have a clarification at some point in the near future about this issue of private property. Is that correct?
That's correct. We're always evaluating every scenario that we get handed. We'll check it out. That's what we do. Let us know. We'll engage with the people having the event and see what we can find out and see if it's in compliance. And certainly as we move forward, we'll have more information about the compliance measures, what's enforceable, what's not. As the scenarios kind of evolve, these are new scenarios for us. So
okay.
All right, thank you. Thank you, Councilmember Hall. Councilmember Porterfield, you've been waiting a while. You recognized.
Thank you so much, Chair, for recognizing me. And I apologize. I had some technical issues and I got dropped off for just a little bit. So I apologize if some of this has been covered. A statement was made about selective enforcement and making sure that we're looking at things through an equity lens. And what was just brought up was the marches in the streets, which we've had people on both sides of all issues having marches, which from my understanding is covered under their First Amendment right. So I don't know that that could be enforced. However, when we're saying that people are violating the policies that we have here, and I understand that you all are getting more information about the enforcement, but what we're being told here is to let people know in advance. When Councilmember Parker was speaking earlier, his audio went out, so I'm not sure how much people were able to hear, but Councilman Parker gave 30 hours advance notice about the house party in East Nashville, yet the party was still allowed to happen. And while I understand the sense of privacy when we're talking about residents, this is something that was publicly advertised. And when we are seeing people publicly perform sexual acts on individuals, I don't understand where there is where we're saying that we don't know what we can do. If this was a house party and someone was having 100 people and the neighbors called, would the police not be able to enforce that either? I mean, I believe that's the thing. When people have a big party or gathering in the community, someone can call the police and say, hey, there's 100 people at my neighbor's house or something. And even if that's just you all knocking on the door or asking people to disperse, I'm not understanding why that same thing cannot be implemented in this case. And I understand that you all are researching the events around the East Nashville thing, but we're seeing videos on social media of explicit acts that were happening, and we're saying that we can't enforce that. I'm not clear on that. So I would love some clarification around that.
We addressed that earlier, Councilmember Porterfield, and their clarification is coming. I think there may be, the police department indicated that they could not do that, but there are some attorneys that are working through this issue now. So we expect to get clarification on that very soon. And I've asked for them to let us know as a council as soon as we get that clarification.
And I would say that if the explicit acts were occurring while the police were there, they would likely be addressed. But generally those aren't occurring when we get there. They're videos that are posted either before or after police presence.
Thank you. So if you could just clarify for me really quickly, and thank you for that information, Chair. So if we're given 30 hours notice, and how much notice do you all need if 30 hours isn't sufficient? How much notice should we be given when we find out about these events?
As soon as you find out about it, give us a notice so we have the opportunity to go try and intervene.
Thank you, Councilmember Porterfield. Thank you, Chief Huggins. Council Vice Chair Johnson, do you still have your hand up? You got a question?
I do. I just wanted to know, so my district is split between Midtown and South precincts. I'm wondering, because we have had a little bit of a spike of some just kind of whatever criminal activity, people breaking into cars and things like that. So I'm wondering how many officers, have y'all figured out some sort of formula? How many officers are taken out of the precincts and diverted downtown to increase the presence for the mask enforcement downtown?
Currently, it's none. We've been using officers in overtime capacity, and we've been using school resource officers while they've not been in school and while they're doing the distance learning to start with. However, we're fixing to have to try and change a little bit of how we staff it, but some of the tornado patrols are ending. We think opportunities will open up with some of the staffing levels, again, with people that are not on duty. It's always our attempt to not use people that are our staff from the neighborhoods that are on duty for these events.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Vice Chair Johnson. Councilmember Hurt, you your hand up. You're recognized.
Thank you so much. My question goes back to legislation, and I don't know if Mike Jameson could be the one to answer the question, but my concern is, I work for an organization that if they pass a virus, then they are tried for murder or attempted murder if they are not told. And this person who may very well pass this virus that's out in the air because they're not wearing a mask is basically doing the same thing to someone who contracts it and dies from it. It seems to me that we have been more reactive as opposed to proactive, and a little too late, too little. So my thing is maybe there should be legislation, stronger legislation. I don't know if Mike Jameson can speak to it, but maybe there needs to be stronger legislation to say that if you do not wear a mask and you subject exposure of this virus to someone else, then there will be some stronger penalty as it is in other viruses that are exposed.
Thank you, Councilor Hurt. The officers do have the discretion if they encounter someone who is flagrantly violating the mask ordinance to take the conduct of that individual at hand and issue other citations for other criminal violations, including, for example, disorderly conduct or even potentially assault. You may have read the episode where there was allegedly unintentional coughing by someone into the face of another. The restraint we have is that the council does not have the opportunity on its own to create criminal legislation. That is a state creature. We're warranted by state law to apply criminal applications to violations. Just, for example, as the state law allows us to apply, say, Class C misdemeanors to health director order violations. But in terms of creating a new code or class of criminal offenses, that is a creature of state law.
Thank you, Mr. Jameson. You have anything further, Councilmember Hurt?
No, I was afraid that was going to be the answer, but I guess that's the whole point of asking for something to be done as early as the council was pushing. It seems that it wasn't taken as seriously as it should have been, and thus we are in the situation that we're in right now.
Thank you, Councilmember Hurt. Captain Levitt, your hand is up. Does that mean is that left over from earlier, or do you have a comment?
I just wanted to clarify a couple things that might be helpful based on some of the questions and comments that we've had. First of all, with the house parties, I know there's a lot of concern about this last weekend's house party and any that might be coming up in the future. I think it's important to keep in mind that we've had house parties long before we had COVID, and we have existing ordinances on the books related to loud music, related to pedestrians blocking roadways and sidewalks, related to illegally parked vehicles. And from my understanding, that's kind of how they addressed that. They started towing cars, ticketing cars, moving people off the sidewalks, and that's kind of how that broke the party up. I wasn't there. That was something that East Precinct handled. But I think their intention was to get the party broken up, to get the people dispersed. I don't know if writing people citations, I think that would have just further delayed dispersing that party, to be honest with you. But I would just keep in mind that we have other avenues that we can use when it comes to addressing house parties with existing laws and ordinances that are already on the books that we've used for years. And secondly, based on Council Lady Vercher's comments, I want to just add, I appreciate her comments that the officers are kind of in a weird position down there, because you have to remember that downtown, with all of our special events, our officers working downtown have always been the ambassadors, posing for pictures with people and letting people sit in the police cars and being friendly and kind of making them feel safe and having that warm welcome when they come to downtown Nashville. So this is a very different role for them. And due to the current climate around the country with police, they're kind of in a weird position right now. But I want to make it clear to everybody on the meeting, it has been made abundantly clear to them that unless someone has a legitimate exception to the mask ordinance, the order by the health department, that they are to be issued citations. And if I can just for a second speak on the picture, because I know that's gotten a lot of traction. I've gotten a lot of phone calls and emails about the picture. I would offer that was another example of just officers trying to be friendly. They were trying to get the crowds cleared out. Hey, can we take a picture with you guys? Okay, real quick, and then you got to go. And there was no more thought to it than that, I don't think, to be honest with you. Not that makes it okay, and as the chief said, it's been addressed. But for the benefit of the folks on the meeting, one of the officers in that picture is the officer who issued both of the citations to the transportation vehicles. So we are taking it seriously. That was just a moment where we were trying to just interact with some citizens, have a quick photo, and it came off looking bad, and we accept full responsibility for that, and it has been addressed. And it's a new day, and we have to interact a little differently with people, and we understand that. Thank you.
Thank you for that, Captain Levitt. And another example of how pictures don't always tell the whole story. So appreciate that clarification. Councilmember Stiles, you still have your hand up. Is that from earlier, or do you have another question? All right, I'll assume that's from earlier. Councilmember Welsh, you have your hand up. Is that from earlier, or do you have another question?
I do have another question about the accommodations that we're making for people who say they have a problem that allows them to not wear a mask. The ADA allows for reasonable accommodation for conditions that cause people to not be able to follow existing law. It does not allow people to flout law. If you go into a retail store, a reasonable accommodation is not for you to be able to walk into a store and infect everyone in the store with a disease. The reasonable accommodation is that the store says, you can call us and we will bring your order to the curb. We need to stop thinking that because people have some sort of condition that requires them not to be able to wear a mask, that they are just automatically allowed to act without thought about the effect of going without a mask has on everyone else. So we need to rethink how we are applying the ADA definition of reasonable accommodation. And I think we really need to be enforcing that in force downtown.
Thank you, Councilmember Welsh. Appreciate that. Does somebody have a comment on that? Okay. All right. I don't see any other hands up for questions and comments. So thank you all for this portion of the meeting. Now I would like to transition into the second phase of our meeting, where we're going to be talking about businesses and questions and comments about businesses who have questions about why they were left out of phase 2 or other phases. So we'll have the health department give a talk about that initially. And at this point in time, I'll turn the meeting over to the chair of our Health, Hospitals, and Social Services Committee, Councilmember Hurt. Councilmember Hurt, the meeting's yours. Councilmember Hurt.
So I sent you a text message to tell you that I've got a 4:30 meeting. I didn't expect this to last as long as it did.
I got you. All right. If you want me to run it out, I'm happy to do it.
Or Councilmember Wells said that she would, because I'm about to get in the car and drive.
Oh, okay. That's good. She's the vice chair.
To stop me.
Sure. That's fine. Okay. Councilmember Wells is vice chair. Go ahead and take over.
Can I just thank Deputy Chief Huggins and Captain Levitt and the other police for assisting with the ordinance that passed last night, and thank them for us being able to cooperate with one another and get that done. Thank you.
And I thank all of you for participating in the meeting today. So Councilmember Welsh, you want to take over the second portion of the meeting?
Yes, thank you very much, Councilmember Pulley. If we could start off right now hearing from the health department about the mask mandate and the various phases. We know that there is some discontent among business owners throughout the city, and I know that I've heard from many business owners in my own district about the language of the phases, meaning that what actually happens is being inequitably applied. And there is fear that some businesses are more in danger than others of suffering under our current out of business. So if Mr. Sharp could speak somewhat to where we are right now with the phases and what we think we see in the near future with these phases, and how the rules under the phases are being applied to businesses throughout Nashville. Mr. Sharp?
Yes, ma'am. Thank you, Madam Chairman. So I'm not really sure what the assertion of inequitable enforcement means. We have received, I don't know, 8, 9, 10,000 violations reports over the last month or 2, 3, whenever that started. And we try to respond to them all and as fairly as we possibly can. There are certainly some sectors of the economy that have been more disadvantaged than others. There's no question about that. When we were in the safer at home portion of this outbreak, there was a fairly long list of essential businesses that were operating during that period. When we moved to phase 1, reopening phase 1, I remember looking around at what other cities were doing in their initial phase 1 reopening, and quickly realized that most of them weren't even going as far as where we had already been. So then we went into phase 1 reopening. Then with that lasted 2 weeks, we went into phase 2, and in the interim, if you recall, the roadmap that was initially published was laid out just as a roadmap. It was it was announced, I don't think it was fully comprehended necessarily, but it was announced repeatedly that this is subject to change. And as we looked at what the virus was teaching us about its behavior in this community, we looked at some of the things that were in phase 3 or even phase 4 by the roadmap and said, we're not really sure that these appear to be posing all that great a risk. And so we pushed quite a few things into phase 2 that had not initially been there. And then we did a similar thing with phase 3, which of course did not last long because we had an enormous spike there in late June. And so the decision was made collectively through the coronavirus task force, the mayor's office, the health department, and that we needed to tamp things down a bit. And so that put us in the status basically that we're in now, which is that the limited service restaurants are closed. The full service restaurants are closed at 10. And the transportation vehicles are to be closed as well. Now, when you say, what does the future hold? I really wish I could tell you. The numbers have certainly gotten some better since we did that. Although I know Mr. Jameson said earlier that we had 100 and something yesterday, and it looked like today was going to be the same. Today was actually, well, it'll be tomorrow's number, but it's 250. So that's not great. But they have gone down, certainly. So can you help me with, did that answer your question, or is there something else you want specifically to be addressed?
The complaints that I have been hearing, particularly from businesses in my district, are that because full license restaurants, if they only have a beer permit, they're required to shut down. They don't feel like the restrictions on operations are being equally applied outside of the downtown area. They feel that many of the bars open in the downtown area that we are having these problems with are using a loophole and exploiting that loophole. And they feel that they are being unfairly punished because they only have beer permits and they don't have, the full restaurant licenses and things. So they just feel like they are being punished for the sins of what's going on downtown.
So do you know what they just have a on-premises beer permit?
Correct.
Okay. That is under discussions because we have talked to lots and lots of business owners. I understand this is very difficult for these folks. I mean, it's really tough. And our goal is to not put people out of business. We really don't want to do that at all. That's one of the reasons we pushed as much stuff forward in the phases as we could, was to try to let people do enough to stay afloat until we could get back to some level that we could maintain for a long period of time, because we're going to be in this for another year, maybe even. So we really have to find that happy place, as it were, where everybody can stay afloat until we can get back to what is more normal. It's true that some of when you do things by licensure, you get establishments that are different. But in consultation with legal and other individuals, we've had a hard time not going by things that are legally defined already. And the licensure gives you an avenue to do that. We are certainly aware that those businesses can be quite different and are looking at some ways that we can parse those legally without just saying, well, I like you, I don't like you, I like you, I don't like you. We can't get into something like that. But we are aware of and are looking closely at the different risks that are posed by different sort of business models, and find out if some way a business model is not a legal thing, but to find out if there is some legal distinction that we can draw to try to address some of that.
Thank you, Mr. Sharp. I appreciate that explanation. At this point, I would like to open the floor to questions of the health department. Again, going back to the mask mandate that is in place and the implications of our phases and what we have done in terms of phases in Nashville and where we see that leading us as we move forward and try to stem the tide of COVID. This also includes questions about schools and the potential of private schools reopening. I know Metro Nashville Public Schools are opening virtually, but private schools opening in-person classes. And any questions or concerns about that? So I open the floor. I feel like much of what we would be talking about now we addressed earlier in this meeting. But if there are still lingering concerns about the mask mandate, other questions that weren't asked earlier, Councilmember Benedict, I see your hand. You're recognized.
Thank you, Vice Chair. To your point, that a lot of the concerns that I have been addressed on this. I would just like to urge Mr. Sharp and the entire department that the sooner that we can find ways to help people around the counties with their small businesses to open up in some form or fashion safely, the sooner the better on that, which I think there is a time is of the essence mentality to it. Just this week, as many of you know, I was with one of the bar owners in my district and a number of other bar and restaurant owners, mostly bar owners from around the area and surrounding districts. A number of them were there with me, and we received a lot of positive feedback about the I believe real and earnest plan for those small business owners to open up responsibly. They are very upset, as most of us are, with what we've seen downtown, and they're the ones who are paying the price. They are the Nashvillians. Not to say people downtown aren't, but most of the people who go downtown are not Nashvillians. And in particular, this is a kind of one of the restaurants that I had a regular who, because he's not been able to come in since March, he committed suicide because he's not able to be around anyone. So these are the types of neighborhood establishments that, I want to make sure we're doing all that we can. I believe that those are the folks I'd much rather trust with my constituents' health and with my health than I would somebody that has a packed location. So again, I understand that we want to be as equitable as possible, and that right now it seems that we are in a space that is, quite inequitable. But anything that I can do to help come up with those ideas or implement those ideas or carry the message from what the business owners in my district are saying, I think that we really, they're hurting so bad, as we just heard them that acknowledged, and what the Vice Chair said as well. So I would just thank you for the indulgence and anything that I can do to help speed up that process. I would appreciate it. If there's alternatives, things that we can do as a revised phase 2.01, if you can contain less than 20 people in your establishment, then XYZ, what are those rules? But I appreciate the attention to it. Thank you again for the indulgence, Vice Chair.
Thank you, Councilmember Benedict. I feel like you and I are talking about the same thing. I feel like we need to come up with a plan that allows small businesses and local neighborhood businesses to operate in good faith, meaning they are making all efforts to make sure that they can provide the services that they offer their neighborhood and their community in a safe way. They may not meet the licensure recommendations that we have currently in place, but they are operating in good faith and doing the best they can, and they are making sure that when their business is open and providing services to the public, they are following all of the guidelines necessary to make sure that we are stemming the tide of COVID. I had a question about masks in the downtown area. And I don't know whether this goes to you, Mr. Sharp, or whether this goes to someone else. But when we find people who are not wearing masks, I know this past weekend, Director Caldwell was downtown handing out masks. Are we directing people to a site where they have to purchase masks, or are we providing them with masks so they can immediately put them on when we see them in violation? And again, I'm not sure who that question goes to.
Dr. Caldwell, are you there?
Yes, just getting back on. What we do there is direct people, first let them know that masks are required. Oftentimes they have it on them, so they just usually get out their own mask. We do have the masks that we can provide to them, although that won't happen all the time. But when we don't have a mask to give them, there are all the businesses that are available. Actually, I'm looking right now at the particular flyer that the police have been giving out, and it does say, for example, at the bottom here, there are masks available for purchase, and they list some of the places where they're available for purchase. Also, during my observations, I know that a number of these places, if you're going to go in as a customer, they will have masks to provide to you if you're going to be a customer. However, if you're not going to be a customer, there are places to buy them, and we try to supplement them. But the majority of people are actually in possession of a mask.
Thank you, Director Caldwell. Given that we provide free masks throughout Tennessee, the state is providing them, is there not a mechanism that we can put in place that we can provide people with free masks that perhaps police officers can have, or there is a mechanism to distribute them downtown? We have free masks in hand that we cannot take advantage of that?
Well, yes, Dr. Caldwell again. I believe that this was us attempting to try to do that. I think we can augment our efforts. And I also know this week we changed where face masks will be distributed in Nashville, Davidson County. Instead of them being offered at the Department of Health, we've partnered with parks so that they'll be available throughout the community at community centers during their operating hours. So this is primarily for Nashvillians, of course. I think we also will try to see if we can maybe better partner with some of the businesses down there to also be a source of where we can hand out masks as well. So we'll continue to try to provide more opportunities for people to have masks. But I'd like to emphasize again, it wasn't so much that people did not have the mask, it's just they didn't have it on their face, had it in their pocket or in their purse or on their wrist.
Thank you, Dr. Caldwell. That is more than frustrating to hear that people have the masks and they're simply not putting them on. I
have one more follow-up comment. In my experience over the weekend, since so many people who are up and down Broadway are not from the area, they are most of the times very happy to put the mask on. They just like, yeah, I just didn't know it was, I had to put it on outside. I thought it was okay. I thought only inside. And so I then try to make it clear to them. I say, well, in this area, you have to keep it on at all times. So I just try to do anything to try to very quickly in my short interactions get people to know that, you have to wear it outside, especially in this area. And of course, if they're walking alone in a park, yeah, you don't need it. But I don't need to go through all the different iterations of when you put it on and when off. I say, in this area, you must have it on at all times. Thank you.
Thank you. Is it possible that we need to change the messaging on the signs that are on Broadway, or change the location of the signs that are on Broadway to make that very, very clear to tourists entering the downtown area that they are required to wear a mask?
Yeah, that's an excellent point. And not only, I think, yeah, there needs to be more messaging and varied messaging. So thank you. And that is a suggestion that has been brought up in our enforcement meetings this week.
Thank you, Director Caldwell. I appreciate that. Councilmember Porterfield, I see your hand up. You're recognized.
Thank you so very much. This was mentioned earlier, but I wasn't sure. I just need a little clarification on what the answer was. When entities are operating after hours, and we are putting in reports through the hub, are we looking at possibly getting someone from codes or the health department to pay visits to clubs, bars, restaurants, any places operating after hours, outside of the guidelines in which they're supposed to be operating when people are making those complaints? So do we have any plan in place to address those things?
And that was directed to Director Caldwell or Mr. Sharp?
I can tell you that that sort of thing was very much a part of the conversation that we had yesterday, I guess, about what Chief Anderson had called their phase 2, their more escalated, the education portion of the program has ended kind of approach to things. The party in East Nashville obviously was a lot of conversation. The transportainment was a lot of conversation. The general mask wearing was a lot of the conversation, and the other part was to make clear that all the officers who are out there, because from the beginning, one of the issues has been is that the hub is a good thing to establish a series of violations. If there's one place you get repeated things about, that helps you identify those places, but it's not ideally suited to sort of real-time reaction to something like there's a party going on next door. So I believe that the answer to that, Ms. Council Lady Porterfield, will be that is exactly the sort of thing that the police are taking on a more active role in going forward.
Thank you so much.
Councilmember Porterfield, does that answer your question?
Thank you so much for clarifying that. And just a follow-up, are you all considering maybe some type of hotline or some way that people can report that so that it can get, dealt with in a timely fashion? I know right now, I know the officers are doing the best that they can, but we know that many times when a call goes in, it is a long extended time before someone is dispatched to the scene. So if we're, calling it and it takes 3 or 4 hours to get there, at that point in time, the event could be over. And again, I know the officers are doing the best that they can. So this isn't, any jab at the police department. This is just saying, can we please consider a way to maybe expedite those calls so that it can be addressed quickly?
Council Lady Porterfield, we haven't really discussed having a separate communication system for that sort of thing at this point, because they've got a good communication system now. If it proves to be an issue that I think people know how to report things to the police, and so and they said, look, if there's a domestic violence case over here and somebody's not wearing a mask over there, we're going to go to the domestic violence case. So we may not be able to go right that second, but I think we're hopeful, and if it proves to be a problem, we'll certainly look at it. But I think we'll see if the extant communication system is sufficient.
Thank you.
Councilmember Syracuse, you're recognized.
Thank you, Madam Vice Chair. Thanks for everybody for your time, for all your efforts, as always. The administration, and I know Dr. Caldwell has heard me talk about this on previous calls, but in looking forward, trying to be more proactive about as we open back up and be successful, are we thinking about ideas such as creating a special event zone downtown that we do for July 4th and New Year's Eve, where we can better control crowds and the criteria, of what it looks like. I know that the idea has been about engaging with the Nashville Civic Design Center, about creating space in the downtown area, whatnot, that is conducive for social distancing, but is also able to be supportive of our downtown businesses. So I feel like I just need to continue to talk about this and throw out the idea, especially because MNPD, legal, and everybody and the CDC needs to all be engaged in this. But what we've seen so far is that you give them an inch, they try to take a yard. And I don't see that mentality going away anytime soon. So as we start to see numbers getting better again, which is great, and we start thinking about if this continues, that we could eventually get to phase 3 by whenever. If we are going to do the same thing in a phase 3 and make it kind of a free for all, I fear for the worst. And so I ask for the powers that be to really look in the possibility of creating an effective special event zone downtown that we can better control opening up and be successful for everybody. Thanks, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Councilmember Syracuse. Appreciate that. Councilmember Bradford, you are recognized.
Thank you, Madam Vice Chair. So this was brought up earlier in the meeting about some of the difficulties about enforcing mask mandates downtown, and I figured this might be a good time to maybe bring this up. As we saw a few weeks ago when some of the theme parks, mainly like Disney World, when they started opening, they had the same rules on their masks. You could take your mask off if you were eating or drinking, but they also noticed that they had a lot of people walking around the parks with their masks off. And when they would be asked about it, they said, well, I'm eating or drinking. It's not okay. So eventually these theme parks changed it so that you can take your mask off if you're eating or drinking, but you can't be walking and eating and drinking at the same time. So is the health department looking at possibly trying to make some adjustments and working with downtown saying, look, if you're going to be downtown and you're going to drink and you're going to eat, stay in one place, don't be walking around. We've talked about it before, and Councilmember Syracuse brought up again about allowing businesses to put tables and to basically expand out into Lower Broadway, shut it down to vehicle traffic so that your sidewalks can now have tables and chairs for these people to enjoy their beverages, while people who want to walk can walk one way up and down Lower Broadway, just have your lanes divided so you have one way one direction, one way the next direction. Has that been discussed?
Councilman Bradford, yes, we've talked about including Councilman Syracuse's special event zone. Honestly, we haven't thought about, I haven't at least thought about much of anything else for the last 5 months. We've thought about a million things. All these are good ideas. I like the idea and have proposed this for at least within a restaurant. If you're standing up, you ought to have a mask on. And that includes walking to the bathroom, includes walking into the restaurant, walking out of the restaurant. If you're on your feet, you ought to have a mask on. And that would include walking down the street as well. I think that's a good idea. And it's a clear distinction. It's easy to, if you're standing up, put your mask on. The special event zone, and moving the tables onto the street, that has been discussed. It has not gotten enough traction, at least to this point, to happen. But it is part of the discussion, yes.
Okay, so if that's not got any traction yet, what else can we do as a council to help move that along? Because so many people have brought it up to me privately. We've had so many of these calls where it's been brought up about being able to do that. And, you know, I've always been personally surprised, not just with COVID, but at other cities I've been to that have very popular streets, Memphis, New Orleans, there's usually a time during the day where that street, they close it to vehicle traffic and it's nothing but pedestrian traffic. And it's always surprised me that we've never done that on Lower Broadway, but especially now with COVID. So what can we do to help the health department get this ball rolling on trying to get the open air dining, as it were, out onto those sidewalks and to shut down Lower Broadway and make it one-way foot traffic in either direction?
I'm not really sure what the answer to that question is, Councilman Bradford. I'm not really sure. There are issues with that are not in my ballpark. But we can keep talking about it. I mean, we can try to figure out exactly what the issue is. One of the things from the health department standpoint that is a little bit of an issue, although outdoor dining is safer than indoor. You always run the risk. What you don't want are large crowds, basically, period, if you can avoid it. And the more attraction you put, the more likely that is, although it doesn't seem to be slowing people down there. So, I mean, it's a reasonable thing to think about, and I'm not really sure exactly what the real holdup is, honestly.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Councilman Bradford. Thank you, Mr. Sharp. I think that we have heard some really good ideas on this call, things that we need to explore and see if we can turn into reality. Because the reality is COVID is not going away. We are going to have to figure out a way to coexist with this virus. And we need to think creatively and with intent to come up with systems so that we can continue to live and have full lives dealing with this virus. So I love that we're hearing such great ideas, and they're things that we need to explore as council, I believe. Does anyone else have any questions or comments before we wrap up our meeting? I appreciate everyone, all the insight, all the questions. Councilman Bradford, your hand is still up. Did you have another question, or was that from
before? My apologies.
Mr. Huggins, I see your hand. You are recognized.
Thank you very much, Councilwoman Welch. This is Deputy Chief Damian Huggins, and I wanted to clarify one of the questions that came up earlier. Metro Legal got some information back to me. The 25-person limit on private property is enforceable, but here are the conditions. It must be with the owner's consent to enter the property or with a search warrant. And I wanted to clarify that had come up, and we had talked about getting you all the information, and I just want to inform you that it is enforceable with the owner's consent or when the police obtain a search warrant to go on the property.
Thank you, Mr. Huggins. Councilmember Porterfield, you are recognized.
Thank you for that clarification. Could you, I don't know that you will have the answer to this, so this may be something that we have to get an email, but in the event that if the party has spilled over outside the venue, so it's more than 25 people, we have 1,000 people at an Airbnb or whatever the venue is, it is obvious that, you know, this party has spilled over. It is obvious that it's more than 25 people. At that point, can you all use probable cause to enforce it because you can see the entities here? or is there a way to expedite getting a search warrant so that you can immediately address it? And I think someone made a comment earlier about domestic violence calls. We definitely understand that the mask enforcement will not take precedent over violent calls, but in the cases where we can address it as quickly as possible, we do want to address it as quickly as possible so that we could try to mitigate that spread and try to keep as many people safe as possible. So again, you may not have that answer, but if you could get that answer emailed to us, I would appreciate it.
I'll get you any emails that information that changes. But as Captain Levitt spoke about earlier, we do have other laws that we can enforce as far as obstructing passageways, disorderly, loud music, things of that nature, and we can establish probable cause from that point forward as we go. And we're certainly going to be working toward that end to make sure that we don't have disorderly houses either in the business districts or in our communities that may jeopardize the health. So we'll certainly look into it, and if I get any different answers than that, I'll certainly forward them to y'all.
Thank you, Mr. Huggins. One final question from me. Should we as council members be encouraging our constituents to be calling the non-emergency line when we see people in violation of the mask mandate, or when we see people in violation of the groups of 25 or more?
I think that anytime the public can call the police department and provide information to us, that's certainly to our advantage. We can at least go address it, or maybe stop it before it's a gathering of 20, before it gets to be a gathering of 200. That certainly would be our hope. So yes, please.
Thank you. And Mr. Sharp, should we also be informing the health department at the same time? Or should we be leaving these matters to the police?
Well, so I'll tell you what we look for. We use the hub mostly because it helps us establish sort of serial violators. And we get, as I said, we've gotten thousands of these specifically violations complaints. And all of them, I'm sure, are well-intentioned. Well, maybe not all of them, but the vast majority of them are well-intentioned. But some of them may be just basically incorrect, that I saw such and such. Surely that's a violation. Well, it may be and it may not be, depending on how conversant they are with what the rules actually are. But we call every one of those people on whom a violation is lodged. And if we see repeated instances, we have teams that will go out there and see them in person and make sure that they understand. Now, some people are just thumbing their nose at the whole situation. And that escalates things into a higher level of things. If it's on the weekends or after hours, we will have someone in communication with the police all the time if they need any sort of help with deciphering what the orders say, or whether this is actually a public health threat that was intended to be stopped and that sort of thing. So they will be able to find us at any time. So right, for most purposes, the hub is the most effective way we have to get to things.
Thank you, Mr. Sharp. We will make sure that we get that message out to our constituents. Captain Levitt, you are recognized.
I just wanted to piggyback a little bit off of Dr. Caldwell. One of the things that's been really tricky with this enforcement of masks downtown, with or without citations, is that it's not like we're dealing with the same people every day. Because we are dealing with mostly tourists, it's not a situation where you say, well, Mr. Smith, I warned you yesterday, today you're getting a citation. It's literally a different group of people pretty much every day. And the vast majority of them are compliant. You ask them to put on the mask, and they put on the mask. I think what would be really helpful, since most of these folks are tourists, they're staying in an Airbnb, they're staying in a hotel, they're staying somewhere while they're in Nashville. So if we can get some really good messaging at the hotels and in the Airbnb organizations and the booking of Airbnb sites, some really strong messaging about the mask mandate, the fact that it's being enforced, the fact that when you're downtown, even outside in those densely populated downtown business districts, that you have to wear the mask. I'm sure Butch will be more than happy to help with that messaging over at the CBC. And I think just the more we can get that message out, the more folks will understand when they come to our city, they've got to keep the mask on.
That's a good idea.
That's a great idea, and I agree with that 100%. But I think that, coupled with better and more prominent messaging on Lower Broadway, will really help to stop the rampant unmasked use, if that's even a phrase. I don't even know. Does anyone else have any questions or comments before we wrap up our meeting today? I don't see any hands. Thank you all so much for being a part of this discussion today. I think we've made some great progress and gotten a lot of our questions answered and have information that we can now pass on to our constituents. Please do not hesitate to get in touch with anyone on the council if you have questions or need more information. Mr. Sharp is readily available. I'm sure Captain Levitt is happy to answer any question. So please do not hesitate to reach out if you have questions or need information. We're all in this together. We can do this together. And I'm looking forward to the downward trend of COVID, good numbers, and being able to move safely into the next phase when that time comes. So thank you all very much for being with us today.
Madam Chairman, thank you very much. I appreciate all the questions and all the thoughtfulness that you guys have put into this. I really do appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Sharp. I appreciate you.
This has been a service of the Metro Nashville Network. If you would like to see this presentation again, or for more information about this and other programs, visit nashville.gov.